What's up, you guys? I'm really glad you're here. This is the first class of my Jade education, and I'm really excited to get started. I hope you guys learned something. My name is Morgan, aka Jade Beauty Co. A little bit of background on me. This is my 15th year in the industry. It's definitely been an interesting year in the industry, but nonetheless, I've done everything in my career from editorial work to behind the chair in a salon, teaching, both at the cosmetology school level and the salon level, and then now I'm my own boss. Teaching has been a really important part of my career, but unfortunately when I did open my own business, that had to kind of take the wayside. So thanks to quarantine, here we are. I hope you learned something. Today's class, we're going to talk all about bringing a traditional foil client to transitioning them into a balayage client. What's really great about this is I've transitioned so many of my clients from the typical foil to a balayage, and what's great is you can really A, customize their color to them, and B, it's also just really long wear. I haven't heard from any of my balayage clients in the quarantine, but I've definitely heard from my foil clients. So the grow out is much easier. It's a much more lived in look, which is what we're going to focus on today. Rather than a client coming in every 4 to 6 weeks for a foil, they could come in every 4 to 6 weeks for a toner, which is really nice. It cuts down on the amount of time that they need to be in the salon, but it's still giving them the added service of a toner throughout to maintain that balayage. And now I do want to make a note, this is a educational video for stylists only. Clients, do not run out and get whatever products you think might work for this. This is only a training for stylists. So let's get started. So here, my girl here, she is clearly brassy, but she's also just been maybe overfoiled over the years, and she's looking for something that's going to be a little bit easier for her to maintain. So what we want to do is, but she did say that she wants to keep the brightness around the front, which we're seeing typically, even on myself, you have that bright pop of color, of brightness, around the front, just to give you a little bit of something so that you still can feel nice and bright, especially coming into summer here, but you're going to have the wearability of a balayage. With that being said too, we might brighten up her ends a little bit as they have gotten a little bit brassy, but we will try to return her to more of her natural color, which on her we will pretend is around a level 6, level 7. So we will deepen her base and keep the front nice and bright. Let's get started.
Here's the head sheet for how we're going to map out our color. We're going to take an ear-to-ear parting, and then our first step will be to take fine weaves that I've labeled in blue along the hairline for our money piece. We'll take horizontal sections in yellow up the sides and horizontal sections up the back in red.
Okay, so the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to section out her front hairline. Take my first section, which it is a little bit tricky to do on a mannequin because their hairlines are much thicker than anyone in real life, but we're going to do what we can. So from here, on this first one, I'm going to take a very fine weave, which on her ends up being a really thick weave because this hairline is thick. So this front weave, I'm actually going to put that in a foil. The beauty of working with a mannequin head is I can toss her around wherever I want. I use Wella and Redken color only. I kind of flip between the bleach, to be honest, whichever Wella or Redken is on sale. I like them equally, so, but I always use Wella color brushes. They're really stiff, which I like, especially for foiling. I hate a flimsy color brush when I'm foiling or doing a root touch-up. Now, I always do a bifold, but for this front piece, I am going to do a trifold because I want to make sure it stays in there really tight. The reason why I choose, now everyone has their own reason, I'm not knocking the trifold. I am Aveda trained, and we were taught to do a bifold so that you get less creasing in your foils. Now I know some people look at it the other way, but that's just what I'm comfortable doing. Again, these are back-to-back weaves. I do always fold my foil at the top to give me a little bit more leverage. I don't fold over my comb. Again, being Aveda trained, that's a no-no in the Aveda world, so I just am not comfortable doing it. And I'll kind of whisk through her ends if they need it, but her ends have been pre-lightened. And this will probably be the last piece here. If she was a client with super fine hair, which a lot of blondes do, or a lot of people level 6 and above do, I would take a product like Design Puff Me. You could use a pomade, you could use hairspray, just to kind of dirty up that hairline and give you a little bit more grit there. And again, I only use 10 volume, so I'm not worried about these over processing, but once I am finished applying her low light color and her root color, I will just double check these. If I need to, I can always pull these first. Okay. There's that first section. Now we're gonna turn her around. And do this side. Okay, so now that I've completed the second side, just like I did the first side, I'm going to go through and do the front. So I'm going to go ahead and do my first weave. And that is the section that I'm going to take. And I'm going to fold these back so that they are out of my way. And I'm going to use her forehead as my balayage board, essentially. I'm gonna kind of divide this section into two because it is very wide, and also that's the angle that her hairline is growing in at. So I'm gonna use her hairline as my guide. Alright, I'm going to come back to this side. Again, I'm kind of breaking this into two here and following the angle of her hairline. And I'm using the front weave as my piece. So this is pretty back to back. I do start to leave out a little bit of the weaves the further back I get, but right in front, this is all pretty solid. You can do slices if you wanted. I always like to weave the hairline. I know some people go right in with a slice in the front. For me, I just like doing a weave better. It's a little bit more diffused around the hairline. And then it's almost like a bricklay. Since I had to kind of go in from side to side here, now my section back is a little thinner. I can go ahead and bricklay over those two front pieces that I just did. And this is where I'm leaving out a very thin weave. And see, I'm just kind of dragging it a little bit. She's pre-lightened on some of her ends, so I'm just dragging it where I feel like it could just be a tad brighter, but doesn't need to be in a full foil here. And my last section, well, last two sections, because I am gonna weave both of these, or use both sides of the weave. So my front side, I left the last one out. I am going to paint this one. And last, so I'm going to take this weave. All I did was weave it one more time just to make sure it was nice and thin. There was like two hairs that popped out. I'm going to let those be, let them hang, and then I'm going to paint the rest. Now you could also, if you're really trying to get a diffused look towards the back here, you could do a teasy light here. I do that sometimes. Again, it just depends. How much of a pop do you want in front, or do you want it to be a little bit more discreet, I guess. But we're going for a full pop in the front, so I'm not going to do a teasy light here. All right, we have her front done.
Here's the head sheet for the back section. We're going to take in blue fine weaves along the neckline and horizontal sections up the back.
Okay, so before I start deepening her base and adding in her lowlights, I am going to highlight, just like I did the front of her hairline, her back neckline. So again, this is great for somebody who is wanting to tone down the blonde, but they want to see that blonde when they pull their hair up. So again, I will weave, but take this first weave. I won't have to do as much around her hairline, neckline, excuse me, like I did around her hairline, because this isn't meant to be like a money piece. This is just meant to give her some brightness underneath so she doesn't feel too toned. second half of that weave, I'm gonna weave out just a tiny bit more because I don't want this to feel too solid on her back there. I'm gonna have her tip her head slightly forward just so that I can get a little bit more leverage on this piece. Don't forget to have your clients work for you a little bit. An instructor told me in beauty school, which I'll never forget this, is that your client can be uncomfortable for a few seconds, but you being out of body position and being uncomfortable, that's your whole day. And so you have to, you know, make sure your body is safe. For them to be uncomfortable for a couple seconds is better than you being uncomfortable all day. So again, I'm gonna have her tip a little bit. Weave that hairline. I did more of a thick weave because again, this is just meant to brighten it up a little bit and not be, you know, ultra detailed. But again, I'm gonna let her neckline decide the roadmap of where my foils are going to go in placement wise. Some people have a really low neckline, but you're gonna do something very disconnected and just kind of go with the flow. All right, now I'm gonna come around this side. And on this one, I'm gonna take that first weave. And with our next step, I'm really not going to talk about formulation at all. That's a whole nother class. But I will talk about application and just kind of an overview of how I decided what I was mixing up. All right, we are ready to start the next step. Because she is overly blonde and we're trying to bring that down a little bit, she's also probably a little bit porous. So what I like to do is I like to use the Design Me and Lisa Walker collaboration. It's the Balance Me Porosity Equalizer. If you follow Lisa Loves Balayage, this is her product that she did with Design Me. It's really great, and I like to use it before I'm going to tone to make sure that that toner really gets accepted by the hair and is also very even. But I do like to spray it a little bit in the hair too if I'm doing a balayage where I'm doing a lot of low lighting, just so that again those low lights are even and the hair accepts it really nice. So what I'm going to do first, I am using Shades EQ, and this is 6NB and 7O half and half. I don't want her to be too dark, but I want her to be pretty close to her natural. So I'm gonna apply this just like I would a root touch-up. So if she's coming in and she was ready for her foil, but she decided to go more of this natural balayage look, I would drag this down to about where her regrowth is a little bit further. So I'm gonna go ahead and do that. She's got a little bit of back combing in there because I've been doing updos on her. So I'm just going to use, of course, back to my old 4 quadrants. Ear to ear parting. If you are a visual learner, I will be putting up a slide here that's going to be the roadmap for where this color is going to go. If you don't care about head sheets, you can just follow along with what I'm doing here. Okay. I would always use demi-permanent color like a Shades EQ. And the reason being, permanent color obviously is going to lift a little bit. I don't want any warmth to be in this. I want this to be as close to her natural as possible. It's very rare that someone has a warm level 6 and above, or excuse me, yes, a warm level 6 and above. Everyone's pretty ashy. So I don't want to use permanent color and end up her having some lift and warmth issues that we have to tone out later. Also, why I love Shades EQ is I love how seamless it goes on. It's not super dense, therefore it goes on really nice. It blends really nice. As this fades into her natural, as she wears it, it's going to blend really nice. Permanent, she just have a new line of demarcation. So always use a demi-permanent with this. Now if she was a client that had gray, we would talk about a different option for her, but this service specifically is for someone without gray, typically level 6 and above. However, I have done this on clients with naturals that are lower. It's just going to be a little bit different formulating and a little bit of different toning, but it can be done. But like I said, for clients with gray hair, it's not my fave. There's many more steps that are involved, so there's another way to get this look for gray clients that doesn't involve doing it this way. So right now I'm literally just going through and retouching her. I'm not dragging it through yet. I'm not mimicking the color anyway. I'm just applying this to her roots. And I'm not putting anything in between those bottom foils yet either. Right now, I'm just focusing on the hair that I have left that are outside of the foils. All right, I'm gonna move ahead to the front. In this spot that is kind of around her hairline, you could add, if she was someone that really wanted that brightness all around her hairline completely, you could add another foil in here. But for the sake of me wanting to just kind of really drop down her color overall, I'm not gonna do that on her, but that is an option. You could always add another foil in around her ear. Okay, now that we've completed her retouch, I am going to take a wide tooth comb, or this is the Color Wow comb that I really like, and just start kind of dragging a little bit of that down. And I will go through and do this in each section as I'm going along. Just kind of diffuses that line so that she doesn't have this, you know, unnatural line of demarcation, or creating a line of demarcation, I should say. So for the next part, I'm going to do all low lights. I'm not going to do a highlight because she does have so much blonde through, but I will go through and lighten her ends at the very end. In replace of her highlight, I'm just going to use a conditioner so that my blonde can stick to the mesh really well. I'm going to be using the Framer Manic Mesh. Sometimes I use wrap, like a balayage wrap. Not always. I like these Manic Mesh, because they're reusable. They are a pain to clean, but they are reusable. And B, they stick to the hair really nice. Makes things easy. So, I'm going to take straight slices. I'm going to leave that out. Lay down her mesh. And I'm going to drag this down. I do want to create that V that gives us some depth. And leaving the ends out. Again, straight slice. This is going to be my highlight. I am going to comb down the color that I put on her root, just to kind of soften that a little bit. And then I am going to use conditioner to hold it in place, like I said, but the conditioner is also going to kind of diffuse that line and just soften it a little bit. Plus it's good for the hair, why not? She's blonde, she could probably use a little extra conditioner. You can use any conditioner. I'm using the Schwarzkopf Blonde Me heavy mask, but you could use anything just to hold it in place. Okay, again, a slice here. Put this under. And I'm gonna start creating that shape. Now some of these V's I'm gonna take a little bit lower. None of them am I gonna pull all the way through. Unless she was really looking to, you know, bring a lot of depth in there and return to more of a low light, you know, heavily low lighted look, but that's not what we're going for. That's a different application. This is more just to bring her down a little bit, make her blonde a little more manageable. We're not looking to get rid of all of her. So I just see like a little area where it wasn't as blended as I'd like. So I'm just gonna tap that real quick before I apply this highlight with a conditioner. And then blend out these lines. Just softens it a bit, that's all. Now, I'm gonna take a straight slice and I'm not going to lay anything underneath it. I'm gonna use this as a big panel. When I get closer to the top, I like to add a little bit thicker depth panels. That way, they're really seeing that depth near their root. So I'm gonna take this whole piece. I'm gonna lay it right on top of that last mesh that I used for her highlight. I'm gonna start to paint that in. I typically do V's, but sometimes I'll throw in there like a slant, so you're just doing it in reverse. I do this service obviously a lot more in the fall, but I have a feeling soon I'm gonna have some people that are looking to do more of a balayage. So I'll probably be doing some in the spring. The nice thing is having that brightness around your face still makes this versatile for summer. Dragging down some of this. And I'm going to blend it out with the conditioner and stick it to the mesh. Some people like to start in back. I like to start in front. That's the most important part to me, so I like to really start there, plus the client can see, and then they can kind of see what you're doing. Especially if they're a blonde, they're probably a little nervous that you're taking them darker. So I like to start in the front so that they can feel comfortable. Or maybe uncomfortable, I don't know. Seeing the color oxidizing dark might freak them out, but that's just what I like to do. Mesh over the top of that. I just really like how the mesh is so easy. You just pop it in compared to a balayage film, which I do use. There's reasons for everything, but it's not as user-friendly. Let's say that. All right, so I'm just kind of softening that with my fingers by pulling it through and blending that out a bit. And then again, using my conditioner to blend and stick it to the mesh. Now I made note of where her part was because I do want to end on a low light. Okay, I left her top section for last. This is where she parts. This is important. So I made note of where her part is. And these are my last two sections. I'm going to do a low light on each of these sections so that she really gets that pop of depth here next to her money piece. So I'm really making sure she's combed out so that this is very blended once it's applied. Turn her around. Also, in between each application, you're going to want to make sure you're wiping your hands off so that you're not getting your Shades EQ or your low light throughout some of her ends that will create spotting. I will go through because it's bound to happen a little bit. I will go through once I balayage her ends a little bit just to make sure if there is any spotting, I can just touch that up with a little bit of lightener. So this panel, because it is the very top, I'm gonna make this more of a slant. I like that because I like to create, you know, a lot of depth in the crown and the back and have the brightness go toward her face. Okay. Now our last section around the front. Combing her root color down a little bit, making sure she's nice and combed out so that this can be a very seamless and blended application. If you start to get some snarls in there, which happens from moving the hair around, right, and we're foiling and we're, you know, messing with it, flipping it up, she's bound to get some of that. So you want to make sure that every section is combed out really nice so that this can be really blended. So you can kind of see I'm creating that slant there. The same way you would maybe do slants with your lightener when you're creating a balayage, you're gonna do the reverse with your dark, making sure your light is going towards her face. Last but not least, we're going to do the back section. This is going to go a little bit faster. Typically when someone has been foiled a lot, they're still a little bit darker through here, so there won't be as much to do. I am going to clip my manic mesh in place so that when I'm flipping the hair over top, my ends aren't getting a root color on them. That's a lot more cleanup work for me to do later on that I don't have time for. So I'm taking about 1/2 inch sections normally and up the sides, and the back where she might be a little darker, I am going to be taking a little bit bigger sections because there won't be as much to do. On her, it's not as obvious because she's a mannequin head and was basically all one color, but I'm not even going to put this in mesh. I'm just going to start combing it down a little bit. Creating that same shape of the V, but on a much bigger panel. And like I said, on a regular client, they're probably going to be a little bit darker here in this nape. So there's not going to be much low lighting for you to do. It's more just blending out some of those old foil lines by dragging the root color that you applied. Now I'm going to take go back to half sections. And I'm going to make this my low light, or excuse me, my highlight. And basically what I'm doing here is just making sure this line is super blended because I'm not actually highlighting. All I'm doing is going through with my fingers and blending that line out a bit. Take my comb too as well. And blend that line out, diffuse it there. I will start using my mesh because I don't want that to sit on top of my low lighted piece. Back to a low light. And again, 1/2 inch section. Comb, comb, comb really well, making sure there's not going to be any weird lines in there. And I'm going to go back to my depth and my V. I'm going to do a really deep V here. because I want to get some of this depth a little bit lower. So I'm going through and I'm creating that shape there. Melting it with my original color on her root. Okay, now that we're on our last section, I did just do a low light in her second to last section, but I'm going to do 2 low lights in a row on here because I want to end with a low light. I really want to extend the depth that she has on top. So comb, 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 comb her out. I didn't go super deep with that last V so that there's room for me to go a little bit further down on this last one. All right, last one. I'll put her last mesh on. And now what I will go through and do is just lift up some of her ends a little bit. All right, we're on to the last step here, which is just gonna add a little bit of pop and brightness through some of her ends. I am using the Wella Free Lights. They're clay lightener. I really love it for open air so that it does not dry out. Even though I am going to process this in the open air, I'm still going to only use 20 volume, mainly because her ends are already lightened. I don't need that much lift. And B, they're also a little bit porous, so I don't want to create more problems. So I'm just going to pop up these ends a little bit where I see fit. If her ends were to the point where they would not be able to handle it, I wouldn't even bother doing this step. This is just an added step if her hair can handle it and if she wants a little bit more pop through her ends. Go around the side here. Also, this is a good opportunity for me to be able to look through her mesh pieces to see if there's any spotting from her low light. It's not uncommon for that to happen. Shades EQ, with it being so liquidy, you're bound to get a splash here and there. But even with that being said, I still always will use Shades EQ when it comes to an application like this. So I'm just kind of going around her hair, seeing, you know, some pieces that might be a little bit brassier, and just kind of painting a little bit on. Nothing, you know, really crazy. It doesn't need to be super difficult, but again, I'm looking through and making sure there's no spotting, as well as looking for, you know, maybe a piece that is super brassy that I can go through and paint a little lightener on. I am using the Framar Power Painter. I like this one because even though it's a paintbrush, I still get a ton of control with it, which I wasn't expecting when I purchased it. I kind of honestly didn't think I was really gonna like it. But I get a ton of control. Okay, so I came across a little bit of spotting here. I'm just gonna take a little bit of that bleach, just so that I can eat that out. And I will, since this is open, I'm going to balayage through her ends. But again, I'm not really trying to meet her low light to this bleach part. I don't want this band of warmth in there where the two met. When all is said and done, when she is ready to be washed out, I will tone her. I'm going to be using half level 10 and half level 10V from shade ZQ to just give her a nice little ashy tone through her ends, as well as blending out that frame pop really nice for her. It's a little brassy in here, so I'm just gonna go through and kind of whisk that up a bit. I'm whisking up, but keep in mind I'm bringing it back down with my fingers. I never like to whisk up and leave it like that. I feel like I've encountered spots that way. It's not as blendable. You want to go with the hair shaft, or the cuticle of the hair. Oops, losing my mesh here. So I'm just gonna go through now and make sure there's no spots and just do a little bit of her ends. All right, and we are all done. She's all balayaged through her ends. I went through and made sure there was no spotting. Another thing you could do rather than doing a dry balayage is you could do a wet balayage at the bowl after you've rinsed her out. I just think this is a nice way to get it all done in one before we tone. But it depends on your time constraints and what you have available for at the bowl. But I will let this process for about 20 minutes. I will go ahead and check her front, make sure that's not completely processed yet. If it is, I will I'll pull those out, and then like I said, I'm going to rinse her, and then I'm going to tone her with 10 and 10A. The great part of the balayage is just to break up some of that warmth and some of that brassiness that she may have. But like I said, if her ends couldn't handle it, I would let the toner do the work. But this will give her a little bit of pop through her ends and a nice summer look. So we are all done here. As you can see, she's nice and rooty now. It's definitely more lived in, definitely going to be more wearable. I didn't curl her or anything because she's actually going to be my model for tomorrow's class on the bob. But yeah, I'm really happy with this, even on a mannequin, because sometimes mannequins can be a little unpredictable when you don't know what the hair has been treated with. But yeah, she turned out beautiful. Again, this is super high contrast. I did that mainly for instruction purposes so that you could really see what this application does. But this is totally customizable. You wouldn't need for the money piece here to be as thick as it is or as bright as it is. You wouldn't need to take her as deep as she is at her base either. So there's lots of ways to customize this for your guest. But overall, I think she turned out really beautiful. And we will see you tomorrow for our bob class on this beauty. So thanks for tuning in.